Hello in this broadcast, the evening news from the television company Ostankino. Today, for the first time in Russia, the Day of the National Flag is being celebrated. This holiday is instituted pursuant to the decree of the President Boris Yeltsin in connection with the re-establishment of the 22nd of August 1991, a historical tricolor flag. As it's stated in the decree, the holiday is instituted in order to teach Russians to have a respectful attitude to their state symbols. Politicians come and go, but the nation remains, its history remains, and its symbols. The red, white, and blue flag, the symbol of victory in August of 1991, and also the Patriotic War of 1812, the victory of Suvorov, the occupation of Berlin in the Seven-Year War, the Poltava battles under this tricolor flag. The flag is one of the most ancient symbols of the nation. Then, in ancient days in Russia, they were called banners. The first banners were long stakes with branches of trees, bunches of grass, and horsetails, etc. Later they began to drape bright pieces of fabric. Despite such an unpresentable appearance, the banners were very respected. An army couldn't depart without them on a mission. And the capture of a banner often was the end of a battle. Therefore, the banner was always in the center of attention at wars. After adopting Christianity, on banners the face of Christ was depicted. Symbols and crests, from here the word znamya or banner. The banner became a holy object. The color of the state flag first became an issue in the reign of Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich. The Tsar ordered to bring to the banners for the first Russian ship the red, white, and blue fabric, and therefore, for a long time, he instituted the national colors of Russia. According to one of the versions, the red, white, and blue signified Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. Under Alexei Mikhailovich, their amalgamation occurred. The quiet Tsar attributed such a significance to this that in his reign the eagle was depicted with 3 heads instead of 2 as a sign of the unity of the great, smaller, and white Russia. But the 3-headed bird did not survive, but the 3-colored flag remained. Alexander II attempted to alter it to blue, yellow, and black, yellow, and white, but 25 years later, under Alexander III, they again returned to the red, white, and blue version. In Russia, white symbolized nobility, blue loyalty, red valor, magnanimity, and love. Will the symbolic meaning be maintained by the old flag in New Russia? Time will show. The fact that in Russia democracy was victorious and Russian statehood was achieved is not necessary to prove to anyone. It occurred in these August days 3 years ago. With a half-hour delay, the triumphant meeting in Moscow began on the occasion of the 3-year anniversary of the victory of democracy in Russia and celebrating its national flag. Participants of the meeting, in one moment of silence, honored all those who died defending democracy during these 3 years. The result of the meeting was the resolution approved by all the participants with an appeal to all democratic forces to unite and proceed with the next elections of the State Duma as a unified front in every way to support the president and government in conducting reforms, to conduct an international public tribunal over the Central Committee of the Communist Party and a Russian public tribunal over the members of the State Emergency Committee. Also, the meeting unanimously supported the proposal of the Union, the Live Circle, to consider the day, the 22nd of August 1994 in Russia, the day of the creation of a pan-Russian democratic movement. In Chechnya, the tense situation remains. TASS reports that in the center of Grozny for the second day, a demonstration continues in defense of the leaders and the president, Zhakhar Dudayev. The prosecutor general of Chechnya officially has warned Ruslan Hasbulatov, Umar Arturkhanov, and their supporters that in the event that unlawful activities continue against them, criminal charges will be filed and an arraignment for betrayal of the homeland and attempts at a forceful coup d'etat. According to Interfox, Zhakhar Dudayev, through his decree, has resumed the functioning of the Republican Parliament. It was suspended in the summer of 1993 after part of the deputies openly spoke out on the side of the opposition. Pursuant to the new decree of Dudayev, the Parliament is instructed by the 30th of September to adopt, after a national debate, the new constitution of Chechnya. Meanwhile, in the Naterich region of Chechnya, controlled by the Temporary Council, the mobilization of a volunteer corps continues. TASS reports that daily it is increased by 30 to 40 people. Despite the fact that the troops are being paid benefits up to 100,000 rubles, the majority of the enlisted volunteers say that they are not here for money, but in order to overthrow the Zhakhar Dudayev regime. The directors of the airport of Ingushetia received written notifications signed by the deputy commander of the Chechnya Armed Forces. In it, expressed as the threat of forced landings in Grozny of aircraft en route to the airport in Ingushetia. In this connection, the press center of the temporary administration on the territories of the republics of Northern Ossetia and Ingushetia, issued a statement which notes that the right to determine when and which airplanes can fly into the sovereign Republic of the Russian Federation belongs exclusively to the governments of Russia and this republic. The military commanders of Chechnya cannot but realize how dangerous such actions are in a region which is directly adjacent to the zone of the state of emergency. Such measures are provocational, it says in the statement of the temporary administration on the territories of the republics of Northern Ossetia and Ingushetia. More than 50 rocket missiles were launched last night on the site of deployment of the Russian border troops of the 12th outpost of the Moscow Border Patrol in Tajikistan. The gunmen of the Tajik opposition were shooting from both the territory of Afghanistan and from the rear of the outpost. Among the Russian border troops, there are no casualties. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia today issued a statement in which it notes that the signing by Tatarstan of an agreement with Abkhazia is proceeding in contradiction to the obligations of the Russian Federation. In compliance with the agreement of Russia and Tatarstan on mutual delegation of powers, Tatarstan may establish relations with foreign countries and conclude agreements with them, but not so that they would contradict the Constitution and international obligations of the Russian Federation. Russia consecutively stands for territorial wholeness of Georgia, it says in this document. Each day, the tension mounts in the region of the Georgian-Abkhazian conflict. Yesterday, one group of participants in the peaceful demonstration attempted to willfully spill over into the Galsk region, only because of the presence of Russian peacekeepers. Unpredictable consequences were avoided. Now, the participants of the protest have been joined by a large group of deportees who temporarily resided in Tbilisi. The head of the Georgian state, Edvard Shevardnadze, today stated that the question about regulating the Abkhazian problem should be resolved finally. The peacekeeping contingent deployed in the conflict zone in the next few days will be joined by new supplementary forces from internal regions of Russia. Edvard Shevardnadze called timely the statement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia issued after the signing of the intergovernmental agreement between Abkhazia and Tatarstan. In the opinion of the Georgian leader, Russian leadership has taken a just and objective position. In the Ministry of Justice of Kyrgyzia, the Republican State Association Accord has been registered. It intends to represent the interests of the ethnic Russians and defend their rights and liberties. Two opposite tendencies have become entrenched in the problem of local Russians. One is to the return to Russia, not because the land is burning underfoot. On the contrary, it would seem that with discussions about dual citizenships, which are attractive and the status of languages promised to be elevated in the sites of compact population and permit portfolios to be occupied. But people have something which is called the inside phenomenon. Many are operating on that premise visibly. Underway is natural depopulation. Each third death in the Republic is of a Russian, and those who intellectually understand that Russia today cannot take them, and Kyrgyzia for now does not want to release everyone, nor right away, are attempting to use this limbo situation, which could be protected for decades, in order to provide the diaspora with the desired height in status. This is the aim of the new association Accord, which includes authoritative social activists, scientists, entrepreneurs, and clergy of the Orthodox Church. This is in response to Askarakaev's appeal to local Russians to wake up. The Kyrgyzstanian president complains that in his conflict with the parliament of Muslim orientation, he often, in solitude, has to battle for the rights of the Slavic minorities. The government of Russia has adopted today a resolution on the question of the return of property to those who have been rehabilitated. The resolution covers victims of political repressions, including citizens subject to forced resettlement as repressed people. In the posture, it's noted that in the event of the death of a rehabilitated individual, the return of confiscated property, compensation for its value, or monetary compensation will be transferred to his heirs. The head of the Russian government, Viktor Chernomyrdin, has completed his tour of the Yaroslav district. There, he supported the initiative of the Yaroslav motor plant to create, on the basis of this manufacturing association, a Russian center for diesel manufacturing. Here, at the Yaroslav motor plant, thanks to the systems of turbo-inflating systems, they've dramatically improved the characteristics of currently produced runners or small engines, and they've developed an entire family of absolutely new line diesels for Russia and 12-cylinder Yaroslav diesels at comparative testing conducted by the Chebaksar tractor plant showed itself to be even better than the Italian and Japanese analogies. In order to launch these new developments into mass of production. Of course, state investment credits are needed, but the Yaroslavians, in today's conversations with the chairman of the government of Russia, in general, proposed to examine the problem from a broader perspective. A true federal program is needed, and the motor plant is prepared to support it with development projects. And situated here in the Yaroslav district, the Tatayev motor factory has offered the Prime Minister a manufacturing program for urban buses of large and extra-large capacity. At the Yaroslav oil processing plant, where also Viktor Stepanovich Chernomyrdin visited today, they intend to raise to world standards, through modernization of their productivity methods, the depth of the processing of oil and increase the production dramatically of high-octane gasoline. The International Bank of Reconstruction and Development warns the Russian government against attempts to resolve non-payment problems through fixing prices. This was stated today by the permanent representative of the bank in Moscow, Ardy Stout, at a meeting with the first Vice Premier, Oleg Saskovets. The banker directed special attention to the fact that the mutual indebtedness problem significantly is deepened by previously concluded government agreements between Russia and near foreign countries, when the governments of the former Soviet republics cannot pay their balances. Given this, the experts of the International Bank feel that the Russian government should continue the policy of liberalization of prices. The fully understandable undesire of peasants from the main grain area of Russia, Kuban, to sell grain to the Federal Fund at the proposed prices possibly will change soon. The Kuban grain products received notification from Moscow for the purchase of 500,000 tons of wheat at prices much higher than before, 135 to 140,000 rubles per ton. This is money which will go directly to the grain producer. And for the capital, considering loading, unloading, and delivery by railways, the price for wheat will be close to world prices. According to specialists, the bread quality grain in Krasnodar Rim this year will be slightly cheaper than in other regions of the country. The administration of the Rim took concern for this, allotting money in the spring for the purchase at comparatively low prices of grain from last year's harvest. The Rim Regional Fund, which comprises almost 750,000 tons, in effect has been completed. And the grain producers themselves didn't lose either, who, for this money, bought in advance technology, fuel, and everything necessary for their further life. As of today, in Pridnestrovia, launched into circulation are new monetary denominations with a face value from 50 to 5,000 rubles. The new Pridnestrovian money are intended to replace the still circulating Soviet rubles with their glued-on special stamps. The government of the Russian Federation has given the international status to the Chelyabinsk airport, and this means that the air dock of the South Urals now will be accessible to airplanes from airliners of distant foreign countries and service carriers who are en route to the Far East with a stopover in Chelyabinsk. During the last years, the volume of flights on domestic lines has decreased by almost one-half, and the emergence onto international levels has become a lifesaver for the Chelyabin airport. Quite expeditiously, the crew and land service specialists were prepared. They repaired the runways, and now the Chelyabin airplanes fly regularly to 8 countries of the world. In the nearest perspective is to begin flights to Greece, Italy, India, and Israel. Now, with currency, one may acquire new comfortable airplanes and carry on construction. We've just concluded a contract with a Yugoslavian firm which will be remodeling the old airport terminal here. A tragic incident occurred again in the Novorossiysk border outpost division. There, a private killed 3 of his colleagues, servicemen. 6 more border troops have been injured. As Interfax was told at the press bureau of the Border Troops of Russia, the soldier who was on guard duty at the outpost went to the sleeping quarters and opened fire from an automatic weapon on sleeping border troops. The criminal has been detained. The reasons and circumstances of the tragedy are being established. As experts in conflict attest, such occurrences among border troops are caused by the poor selection of recruits. The specifics of the duty at the outpost demands not only excellent physical condition, but strong moral health. At the outposts, in an enclosed environment where individuals who serve are prone to inappropriate behavior, hence the resolution of even simple personal conflicts with weapons is growing rapidly. The source of what the Bavarian police seized in the Munich airport, that is the radioactive plutonium-239, remains unclarified. To clarify the situation was also impossible at the meeting in Moscow conducted by the special emissary emissary of the Federal Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany, Bernd Schmidt-Bauer. During 3 days, the delegations of the competent Russian German organs discussed in Moscow the problem of illegal international circulation of nuclear materials. I'll remind you, after the incident in the Munich airport, where on the Sheremetyevo flight a suitcase was delivered with deadly cargo, the German authorities decided to send an official delegation to Russia, headed by the State Minister Bernd Schmidt-Bauer. Today, at the briefing in the Federal Services of Counterintelligence, Sergei Stepashin, the representative of the Federal Chancellor, assured journalists that the talks were conducted in a friendly, constructive atmosphere. To the question, whose plutonium was it, the director of the Federal Service said the country origin is being established. The special services of Russia and Germany confirmed their readiness to interact more broadly, since smuggling of nuclear materials is a danger to everyone. The results of the dialogues were documented in the memorandum signed today, and they will be brought to the awareness of the leaders of both countries, and after approval will be publicized. The scale of the strange operations with the fissionable materials are really startling. Only in Germany last year, 123 attempts of plutonium contraband were curtailed, suitable to produce nuclear weapons. The sum of their weight was more than 2 kilograms, and their overall cost several tens of millions of German marks. More frequently, the couriers and dealers of the nuclear containers are Russians, Baltic people, Poles, and rarely Latino Americans, as it was last week in the Munich airport. Specialists of Euratom, who investigated the contents of the cargo detained, concluded the undoubted Russian origin of the plutonium-239, and the suspected are objects in poor condition from the pan-Soviet associations Zatop and the Kurchatov Institute. However, as of today, neither experts nor police can answer the main questions. By what means are nuclear materials transported out of the Commonwealth republics? Who and under whose high cover penetrate nuclear storage sites? And thirdly, for whom are the deadly cargoes intended? Potential buyers are called Libya, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, and North Korea. And incidentally, not on the basis of any proof, but based only on the warring intentions of the leaders of those countries and their desire to acquire nuclear weapons. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan intends to develop a draft agreement with Russia about the commercial fishing in Russian territorial waters near the South Kuril Islands, and is prepared by mid-September to begin talks with Moscow on this question. As the newspaper Asahi reports today, after recent incidents when Russian border troops resorted to the use of weapons against Japanese poachers, the Foreign Affairs Department is anxious to conclude an agreement with Russia and is urgently formulating it in such a way which would make clear the decisiveness of Tokyo to pursue the return of the South Kuril Islands. The patriarch of the Chinese leadership, Deng Xiaoping, today has turned 90 years old. He was congratulated by many heads of state. In his greeting, Boris Yeltsin wished Deng Xiaoping health and longevity and highly praised his contribution into the establishment of new relations with Russia, free from the sediments of the past. An ordinary soldier of the party, Deng Xiaoping, entered the political life of China. With the same title, he approached his 90th birthday. In China, there are many temples and too many saints in them, Deng said once, with a clear implication at the age of the Chinese party's stated lead. Young people should be working on reforms, setting an example for veterans. During the last 5 years, he occupies no official post. The Chinese patriarch makes no public appearances, spending his time in seclusion among his family members. Only in the beginning of the year, unexpectedly, he surfaced in Shanghai to make congratulations on the Spring Festival Day. In this center, the buds of reform were producing the most noticeable results, and the dawn visit in Shanghai, in the language of the Chinese symbolism, is more like a blessing for being stoic and not turning back from the chosen path. Critics reproach him for not leaving a clear successor. Incidentally, his protege, Jiang Zemin, incidentally also native of Shanghai, now, as once Mao Zedong did, occupies 3 main posts in the government. His appointment was one of the attempts of the patriarch to remain in the shadows and guarantee the irreversible progress of reforms. China considered the sad experience of Yugoslavia and the dramatic collapse of the Soviet Union, and on its reform path, it has no intention to repeat those mistakes. Not by coincidence, the armed forces of the Chinese National Republic currently are intently studying the theory of Deng Xiaoping in order to implement it in practice more effectively. Today at midnight, the French forces, who for 2 months were stationed in Rwanda in the framework of the Operation Turquoise, fully have left this African country. The main result of this operation was the end of the mass genocide of the civil population and to stop the flight of millions of Rwandans into neighboring Zaire and Burundi. We'll remind you, the French created in the southwest of the country a humanitarian security zone providing protection for residents there. And yet, can one consider the Operation Turquoise successful? I would not rush with a positive assessment. The decision of Paris to send forces into a clan war-torn country again raised the question, how can the world community, by peaceful peaceful means stop combat activities in any point of our planet? The Rwandan history undoubtedly gives no answer to this. In this connection, it would be appropriate to remember the old mistakes when the Somalian conflict, as a result of such a type of military intervention, flared up with new force, and the international community found itself impotent. There is a natural conclusion. To date, there's no unique recipe to resolve such situations. The West must fully assume responsibility for wars and poverty, or else for future conflicts there will be a much higher price will have to be paid. And so the Operation Turquoise has been completed. Instead of the French, the UN forces, mostly among whom are the Blue Berets from African nationalities, will be there. And now the question arises for the need of political regularization in Rwanda, the return of refugees, which evidently will need quite a bit of time. The president of the Serb Republic in Bosnia, Radovan Karadzic, stated on Sunday in Banja Luka that the Bosnian Serbs will have to realize the need to relinquish part of the territories which they control today, 70% of the territory of Bosnia-Herzegovina, according to the plan presented by the International Contact Group, by which on the 27th and 28th of August, Bosnian Serbs will conduct a referendum. The Bosnian Serbs will receive 49% of the territory of Bosnia-Herzegovina and the Muslim Croat Federation 51%. This morning in the streets of Sarajevo, after a 17-day pause because of the danger of sniper shooting, trolley car movement has resumed. And for the residents of Sarajevo, this is a symbol of the normalization of the situation. At the same time, Muslim forces continued severe attacks on the positions of Bosnian Serbs in the north of Bosnia, near the cities Masif Ozren and the city of Doboj. Today, in the center of Istanbul, near the military conscription office, a bomb exploded. 6 people were injured. It's suspected that the explosion was organized by the Kurdish gunmen. However, they themselves blame the terrorist act on the right wing of the Turkish nationalists. Serious clashes occurred last night in France between the Kurdish protesters and police. 190 Kurds were arrested. 6 police were injured slightly. The Kurds gathered near the Georges Pompidou Center in Paris in order to express protest against the policy of the Turkish government regarding Kurdish population of the country, demanding to stop the mass murder of Kurds in Turkey. In Mexico, according to the preliminary reports from the Federal Election Institute, at the Sunday elections, the representative of the ruling for the last 65 years Institutional Revolutionary Party, Ernesto Cedillo, won. The new president will take office on the 1st of December of this year. Occurrences like this in America are not yet a rarity. A road incident. Good news for the Americans is that there's a larger number of drivers observing the rules of the road. According to just published data, the presence of police on American roads has decreased significantly, but the number of violations also decreased. Accidents resulting in death are fewer as well, by 8,000 a year. Maybe people are just being more careful about their safety. But this is only one of the versions. We don't intend at all to ease up on drivers, say the police. We just have a shortage of patrol cars. Many are on call. And yet, why are there fewer violations? Possibly the reason is stricter laws in a country where the majority is used to comply with them. And the permitted alcohol content in a driver's blood is now lower than 1 year ago. Responsibility for a car is carried not only by a driver. In Virginia state, the passengers have no right to drink in the car, even beer. We're told that the American population is growing older, and now on the streets there is less and less young riffraff. Respectability is in fashion. Perhaps it's the roads, or perhaps it's the clear and discernible from afar road signs, or that respect for others, drivers and pedestrians, is instilled here from childhood. Evidently, those who feel that the deterrent of punishment makes one drive carefully were not correct. Or else how can one explain that the guardians of order are becoming fewer and drivers are following the rules with even more diligence? The reason for the visit to the creative association Selin, which brought together a unique collection of artists and jewelers of highest qualification, was the first in our contemporary experience giving a company such a direction, an honorary position in the just published catalogue called the Elite of Business, on the same level as Avtovaz, the aviation technical plant Antonov, Atlant, and other giants, despite the difficulty of our times, which operate successfully. Selina's products, although this word, I think, does not completely suit the artifacts created here, they are truly works of the highest jewelry form of art. And not by coincidence, its best works are already in our famous Diamond Fund of Russia. Art is art, but from the sky, neither materials nor instruments and even work facilities will not fall. They began here from scratch, only golden hands of the artists. During the last year at our company, many changes occurred. Life has forced our company to open a store so that our goods, which are found on the shelves in other stores at very high prices, in our stores we can sell our goods at the reduced prices of the company. And money is needed for the development of the manufacturing and the development of the sphere. In St. Petersburg, the first international ballet competition called Maya is coming to an end. Today, the names of the winners will be announced. Yesterday, a rare case for international ballet competitions occurred. All 15 participants of the second round entered the finals. This is explained by the exclusively strong competitors who dazzled everyone by their performances of contemporary choreography and original numbers on the topic of Carmen Suita. This exhibit is in the center of contemporary art in Vilnius. At first glance, it seems to be no different from the traditional annual viewings when artists present the fruit of their labors. And yet, the organizers themselves called it only a dress rehearsal before the next viewing, which is planned for next year. Another uniqueness of the exhibit is that artists who presented their work here are united into 6 creative groups, the alternatives to the Union of Artists of Lithuania. Although all of them, as a characteristic of artistic nature, are very diverse in their individual views of life, which is noticeable in their exhibits, are united, in the opinion of the group Posts Art, by respect for artistic originality, where there's no division between young and old, prominent or small artists, women or men, and no one has an advantage for any genre. One would think that the new exhibit in the capital center of contemporary art would attract those visitors who are interested in the search of the painter, the sculptor, or the master of applied or decorative art. In the very center of Moscow, during these moments, rock music blares out. In the framework of the celebration of Vivat Russia on Red Square, the 3rd anniversary of the August events is celebrated by rock musicians. Those who played 3 years ago near the White House, the groups Mr. Twister, Time Out, and others, organized on the Vasilyevsk Bank what has become now traditional rock on the Barricades Festival. With this report, I'm completing my part of the broadcast. It will be continued by information from the sports commentator. All the best. Good evening. Today at the chess tournament in Novgorod, another round. In the center of attention undoubtedly was the match between Ivanchuk and Kasparov. It ended with a tie, which allowed Kasparov to remain leader in the tournament. He now has 6 points. And also a tie between Bareyev Shirov and Short Karamnik. At the World Championships on cycling in Italy, the competitions have ended on the track, and now the roads competitions have begun. In the program, the first type of team races, 50 kilometers for the women, gold medals were won by the Russian athletes, including Olga Sokolova, Alexandra Kolesleva, Svetlana Budinkova, and Valentina Olkhanova. For the men, the distance naturally was 2 times greater. Here, there was no fierce competition. There was too great an advantage of the Italian 4 during the entire race. And at the finish, they won over the quartet from France by almost 3 minutes. Successfully performing at the international competitions in track and field in Germany were the Russian athletes. Ekaterina Podkopayeva won the 1,500-meter dash. Rodion Vatalin was best at the high jumps, and Dmitry Shevchenko in the discus throwing. And you see, at the finish of the 3-kilometer distance with a powerful sprint, Gitter Baumann from Germany wins. Best of all, at the first level, at the volleyball women's Grand Prix, teams were Cuba, Brazil, and the United States with 3 victories each. You see a fragment of the match Brazil-China. The South Americans are on the right of the screen. In which of the 4 rounds did the Brazilian teams win? Unfortunately, our team won only in 1 of the matches of 3. In Montreal, the women's tennis tournament has come to a close. In the finals, as predicted, the Spaniard Aranca Sanchez met with the German Steffi Graf. In the first round, the Spaniard was stronger in the second, the German, and everything was decided in the third at the tiebreak. Sanchez was lucky. As a result, she became the winner of the competition, just slightly improving her overall score in the singles with the top seed of the world. Another representative of Germany, Boris Becker, was able to support the victory traditions of German tennis in the decisive single at the competitions in the United States. In 2 rounds, he beat Marc Rosset from Switzerland 6-3, 7-5. Becker began the season unsuccessfully, but 1 week ago he was best in Los Angeles, and now new success in the advent of the Open American Championships. In Moscow yesterday, the equestrian competitions ended for the Volvo Cup. Performing marvelously was Natalia Alikanova. She received a silver cup and the right to participate in the final tournament in the capital of Greece in September. And in conclusion about soccer, as you probably know, tomorrow, alas, will be the last match for our marvelous soccer player, Fyodor Chirinkov. The Moscow Spartak team will play the Italian team Parma. The Italians, on the eve of their flight to Moscow in a friendly match, played the Naples club 1-1. Good evening. Information from the Oceanic Meteorological Center. The anticyclone over the Arkhangelsk district will define the weather in the north of the European part of Russia. Therefore, in the Murmansk, Arkhangelsk areas, Karelia, the Leningrad district, the Nenets Autonomous District, and the Republic of Komi, expected is partly cloudy sky with temperatures at night from 1 to 6. In some places, possible frost down to -2 during the day, 13 to 18 degrees. In the area of a cyclone and its connected atmospheric fronts in central and Volga-Vyatsk areas, on the central Volga, in Pred-Uralia and central Ural, is cloudy and rainy, with the winds will increase with the thunderstorms. In the Baltic countries, Kaliningrad district and Belarus, in an area of high pressure, partly cloudy skies. During the day, 16 to 21. The temperature of the water in the Gulf of Riga, 18 to 19. In the Finnish Gulf, 16 to 18 degrees. On the lower Volga and in the republics of the northern Caucasus and in the Crimea, the south of Ukraine and Moldova, mostly cloudy skies. In places, torrential rains with thunderstorms. This is the influence of a cyclone over Moldova and connected with it atmospheric fronts. Here, expected is mostly cloudy skies. In places, very strong torrential rains, with the storms an increase of the winds to 20 to 25 meters per second. During the day, 17 to 23. In the north of Ukraine, the Rostov district, the Krasnodar and Stavropol rim areas will be in a belt of high pressure. Expected are partly cloudy skies with the temperatures of 17 to 22 degrees. Cloudy weather with brief periods of rain will remain in the central Chernozem area. Temperature of the air during the day will not exceed 18 degrees. In the Orenburg district, partly rainy with thunderstorms. During the day, it will be 20 degrees. Beyond the Caucasus will be in an area of high pressure. Partly cloudy skies are expected during the day, 26 to 31. In Armenia, as high as 35. The temperature of the water near the Crimean coast, 22 to 24. At the Caucasus coasts, 23 to 25. In Petersburg, partly cloudy skies during the day, 17 to 19. In the capital, it is mostly cloudy with brief periods of rain during the day, 15 to 17 degrees. The 23rd of August, according to the folk calendar, is Lawrence's Day. On this day at noon, they watch the water in rivers and lakes. If it's calm, autumn promised to be calm and winter without snowstorms. Autumn and winter farewell. On Lawrence's Day, waters are calm with slight rain. That was the folk saying. Our program in Crater Bank wish you good weather. All the best.